Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are wading into some very deep water. We're talking about the highest stakes budget discussion a country can have.
We really are. This is about the fundamental financial architecture of Pakistan.
Exactly. Specifically, we're dissecting the mechanism that determines how the national money is split up. It's called the National Finance Commission, or the NFC award.
And right now, it's at the center of this huge political and constitutional debate, all happening, of course, in the middle of a really serious national fiscal crisis.
Yeah, and this is more than just a debate about spreadsheets. Our sources provide a very forceful counterargument to the prevailing wisdom.
The wisdom that says you have to weaken the province's financial shares to save the federal government.
Right. And for you, listening, the mission here is crucial. We want to understand the constitutional shield around provincial finances and, where the real crisis points are, at least according to our source material.
Because they suggest the whole debate is dangerously misdiagnosed.
So before we get into any numbers, let's define what the NFC award actually is. The sources are very insistent on this point.
They are. They say it is not just some discretionary fiscal arrangement you can change on a whim. They frame it as a constitutional covenant.
A covenant, that's a strong word.
It is. It's rooted in Article 160 of the Constitution, and it dictates how national resources are divided. And crucially, it underpins state capacity, legitimacy, and really the cohesion of the whole federal structure.
That framing, a constitutional covenant, it just elevates this discussion so far above a normal budgetary fight. So let's unpack this covenant. It really all hinges on a decision made over a decade ago.
That's the starting line. The 7th NFC award from 2010.
What did that do?
It set the provincial share of the divisible pool of taxes at 57.5%. The source material stresses this was a very conscious, very deliberate constitutional correction.
A correction for what?
For decades of centralization. Before that, resources were heavily concentrated at the federal level, which weakened the provinces and, created a lot of political tension. This 57.5% figure was meant to reverse that.
Okay, but if the federal government is truly strapped for cash now, why can't they just roll that percentage back? And this is where we found that constitutional firewall you mentioned.
This is the single biggest barrier. It's Article 163A.
Yeah.
The clause is crystal clear. It mandates that, and I'm quoting here, the share of the provinces in each award shall not be less than the share given in the previous award.
So it's a one-way street.
Exactly. It's a non-regression principle. It can only go up or stay the same, never down.
So let's translate that from legal speak. Does that mean a sitting finance minister, no matter how bad the emergency, cannot legally cut the provincial share below 57.5%?
That is precisely what it means. It effectively freezes the principle of provincial fiscal autonomy. The sources argue very forcefully that this makes provincial financial dignity a constitutional right, not some political concession.
But, come on. If the country is genuinely on the brink of fiscal collapse, doesn't national survival come first?
The constitutional scholars we looked at would vehemently disagree. They say this provision, especially when you read it with the Objectives Resolution, which frames Pakistan as a federation of autonomous units.
Right.
It affirms that short-term budget panic can't be an excuse to dismantle the fundamental contract holding the nation together. You can't just use fiscal expediency to tear up the constitutional design.
Wow. Okay. That makes the stakes incredibly clear.
Yeah.
But now we have to turn to the other side. The reason we're even having this debate.
The proponents of an amendment.
Yes, and they are making a very loud and, frankly, a pretty compelling case that the Federation itself is facing collapse because of this split.
That's the core claim. They argue the Federation is fiscally strangled. It retains only 42.5% of the divisible pool.
While paying for 100% of some very big bills.
Exactly. The non-negotiable, exclusive, and extremely costly responsibilities.
And what are we talking about there?
Well, defense, which is mandated under Article 243. Then you have foreign affairs, currency management, internal security, and the big one.
The national debt.
The national debt. It's the real monster here. The sources highlight some truly alarming figures.
What are they?
If you look at the federal budget, debt servicing, just paying the interest on the debt, is now eating up nearly half of total federal revenues.
Half.
Half. Add rising defense costs to that, and the central government says it's constantly forced into unsustainable borrowing, printing money, which fuels inflation, and this overwhelming dependence on places like the IMF.
So their argument is simple.
Mhm.
We just can't run the state on 42.5% anymore.
That's their case.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the source material provides a really strong rebuttal. It suggests this whole crisis is fundamentally misdiagnosed.
That's the entire crux of the counterargument. They're saying it's not a crisis of resources being shared incorrectly. It's a crisis of governance and systemic failure.
So it's not about how you slice the pie. It's about how big the pie is in the first place.
Yeah. Or why the state is so bad at baking a bigger one. The primary distress isn't the provincial clawback. It's the systemic failure to create wealth.
And what do they mean by that?
A state that keeps its people trapped in poverty, that excludes them from productive economic life, can't finance anything. Not defense, not infrastructure, certainly not debt.
So the focus should be on.
Investing, radically, in science, technology, education, human capital, converting that massive population into a dynamic, productive force. They say trying to fix this by adjusting the NFC is just redistributing scarcity.
Redistributing scarcity. I like that phrase. Okay, so that's point one. The issue isn't the split, it's the size of the total pie. What's the second point?
The efficiency of the machine itself, even the resources that are collected are just bleeding out
How?
due to bad governance. The sources are pretty unforgiving here. They describe it as opaque, corrupt, and technologically obsolete. You have laws mandating financial disclosure that are just ignored.
The government processes are still manual.
Largely, yes. Manual, discretionary, and highly susceptible to what economists call rent-seeking.
Okay, hold on. For the listener, when we talk about rent-seeking in this context, what are we describing?
It's essentially a form of corruption. It's where individuals or groups manipulate the system, like using manual processes or unnecessary regulations, to capture existing wealth without creating any new wealth.
So like an official creating a roadblock just so they can charge a fee to remove it.
That's a perfect analogy. It's wealth extracted through political influence, not through production.
That paints a picture of just systemic leakage. What's the solution offered here? The sources suggest something radical.
It is radical. Digitalization. A determined full-scale push to digitalize governance, the economy, public finance. The sources claim that a loan could save and generate more resources than any painful NFC adjustment.
How?
Imagine moving from manual tax audits and paper-based customs checks to transparent, automated, tech-driven systems. You instantly eliminate countless points of corruption.
So the fix is administrative and technological, not constitutional. And that brings us to the third point, which tackles the size of government itself.
Absolutely. The obsession with cutting provincial shares distracts from the most obvious fix, radically reducing the size and the incredible waste of the government.
Civil administration and defense.
Both. Restructuring them around advanced technologies, Gen AI, automation, and smart systems, instead of relying on bloated manpower and outdated doctrines. Fiscal responsibility has to start with lean, modern governance.
This leads us perfectly into the other major criticism you always hear, the myth of provincial tax failure.
Yes, the classic argument. Critics say provinces contribute less than 10% of total tax revenues, even though they control big tax bases like agriculture, property, and services.
The implication being that because they get guaranteed NFC money, they're just fiscally lazy.
They have no incentive to collect their own taxes. That's the argument.
It sounds pretty solid on paper, but the source material calls this intellectually hollow. Why?
Because you cannot tax poverty. It's that simple. Provinces aren't underperforming because they get too much money. They underperform because their economic base is narrow, exclusionary, and stagnant.
So you can't ask a province to collect more revenue when?
When millions of their citizens are unemployed, when their health and education systems are broken, when there are no innovation ecosystems, and when small producers can't even get a loan.
It's a structural issue. Tax revenue is a symptom of wealth, not the cause of it.
Precisely. Wealth must be created before it can be taxed. The conclusion from this is stark. Scapegoating constitutional devolution while defending a corrupt, inefficient system isn't strengthening the federation. It's actively undermining it.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. If weakening the provinces is both constitutionally blocked and economically a bad idea, the sources argue that the Constitution itself offers other ways to strengthen federal finances.
Yes, without touching that protected 57.5% share. The sources reject this false choice between federal survival and provincial autonomy. There are at least 3 clear paths forward.
And the first one is the most straightforward.
Simply grow the pie.
Meaning, expand what's in the divisible pool to begin with.
Exactly. The pool of money to be split currently excludes certain federal taxes. By amending Article 160 to include those, like specific levies or certain customs duties, you immediately increase the total revenue for everyone.
So the federal government gets more cash, the provinces get more cash, and the 57.5% ratio doesn't even change.
Not at all. It's a win-win.
Okay, that sounds like a textbook solution. The second one tackles the leakage we talked about.
It does. This is the call for radical tax and governance reform, focusing specifically on the Federal Board of Revenue, the FBR.
What would that involve?
Using technology to eliminate exemptions, tackling endemic corruption, fully digitizing the entire tax process, and finally integrating the huge undocumented sectors of the economy.
And how big is the potential gain here?
The analysis suggests this kind of aggressive, tech-driven overhaul could generate revenues that would dwarf any NFC revision.
It's worth it.
Think about it. If the government stopped losing billions to corruption and untaxed sectors, the whole argument over 42.5 versus 57.5% just, it becomes moot.
And the third solution, government waste.
Radically restructuring the loss-making state-owned enterprises, the SOEs. They are a colossal drain on the national budget.
And the key here isn't just selling them off.
No, the sources stress that. It's not about selling national assets for pennies on the dollar. It's about fixing the systemic failure, eliminating duplication, enforcing professional tech-based management, ending political appointment.
And cutting what they call wasteful rent-seeking expenditure.
Year after year, they point to proven, performance-driven models like those used in East Asia as the way forward.
This brings us right back to the central theme, doesn't it? The NFC itself is not the enemy.
The source material is absolutely clear on this. This debate isn't really about numbers. It's about what kind of state Pakistan chooses to be.
And a federation weakened by bad governance won't be saved by raiding provincial shares.
And a province stripped of its fiscal dignity won't deliver stability or national unity.
So this whole attempt to amend the NFC is characterized as, what, a dangerous distraction.
It's described as a shortcut illusion. Constitutionally dangerous, politically destabilizing, and economically ineffective because it completely misses the actual problem.
The real path to federal strength isn't centralization.
It's technological transformation, it's wealth creation, it's honest, smart governance. Pakistan doesn't need a weaker NFC. It needs a modern state that trusts its own constitution and invests in its people.
So what does this all mean for you? The entire premise here rests on this idea that the path to federal strength lies in technological transformation, using tools like Gen AI and automation to restructure defense and civil administration. Considering how much political heat and institutional energy this fiscal debate is consuming, a key question for you to mull over is this. How quickly can a state truly transform decades of manual, opaque governance structures using technology when the argument about who gets what share is still dominating the entire political discourse? Something to think about as you follow the headlines.